I was out of action for a couple of days last week and I left the guys a few things to get done. Looks like they've been busy, so let's go and have a look. As I mentioned, I was out of action for a couple of days last week and left the guys a few things to get started with. One of which was this white FK8. It's been dropped off by a customer, Goode, and he's going to be competing in this year's time attack season. As some of you guys may already know, we competed in the 2019 time attack season and we ended up winning the championship. Albeit at that time we weren't producing YouTube videos, so we didn't really capture the full essence of what we were doing on track. However, this year we've got 4 FK8s in time attack and we're going to follow the season along to see how the cars are put together, how they get out on track, and ultimately the whole format of time attack and the way that the season's run. So really looking forward to bringing you this one. So to get started with, we've got Nick's car in with us and it's going through a whole load of modifications. We've got a big engine sitting down there, which comes from a previous car that you guys on the channel would have seen already. But not only are we replacing the engine, we've got a gearbox overhaul to do, we've got the doors off the car and we're going for a full interior strip down. Let's get into it. So the old engine has now been removed from the car. This is the whole 400 horsepower unit that was clearly doing the job for Nick previously, but Nick wanted more power, and that's where this engine comes in. So this engine has come from an FK2 that we've previously put together, and it's had absolutely thousands spent on the internals of this engine. We'll drop a link back to the video of the car that this engine came from. And it's an FK2 that was previously built for a customer that's now come back into our fleet. The car's now owned by one of our technicians and the engine was clearly going into Nick's car. So with this engine we have got Saenz rods, Taran pistons, we've got a 4-piston CNC cylinder head, Ferreira valves, the oversized 1mm, along with the VTEC delete kit. It's also using a Garrett G25 660 turbo, and when we saw it in the FK2 last, it produced a massive 560 horsepower. Whether we'll use all of that power on this particular build, we're not too sure just yet, but we're going to get the car in, get the engine into the car, get the car running, and we'll go through a whole tune again. So the gearbox itself is going to benefit from new synchros throughout, a whole new set of bearings. We're going for a straight cut RV6 4th gear, and we're fitting a Quaife ATV differential. So there's a couple of parts needed to switch over between the two engines. This engine was an FK2 and we're going into an FK8. So you can see one of the differences to start with is the engine mount across the side there, so we'll switch that over. Also the sump, where we have the engine mount fit on the FK2, is different to the FK8. So once the engine's in the car, we'll get the sump switched over. But also the FL5 water pump that we've already fitted to Nick's engine will now transfer across onto this engine, hopefully giving it as much as we can to help with the cooling. So with the fact that I've now switched over the water pumps onto the engine, got the auxiliary belts across and changed that engine mount, the engines are going to be waiting for the new gearbox to be put back together. So whilst we wait for that to happen, I'm going to move my focus onto the interior, get the rest of this carpet out and start getting to grips with moving the headline in. So we're going to be ditching all 4 doors in replacement for some of our race doors. Now the race doors have been prepared with a Perspex window and a carbon fibre shield on the inside. Obviously all the insides of the door has also been cut out, so we're going for quite a weight saving with that one. But whilst we've got the doors off, it gives us a good opportunity to start getting the rest of the interior out. We've stripped out a lot of the plastics already. What's left is the carpet and the headlining to go. At that point there, we're pretty much ready for the interior other than throwing in a set of bucket seats and a half cage. Obviously we've got loads of work to do on the engine and on the interior of the car, but we're not going to be forgetting the brakes and the suspension. So Nick's previous setup was white line springs with the Integra Type R ADS module. Now that worked very, very well, and he's obviously got some great feedback on what that's done for him so far. But in the ultimate pursuit of performance, we're going to be changing out the springs and shocks for Nitron coilovers, and the brakes, clearly a very tired looking Brembo, they're going to be switched out for a big set of AP racing brakes. We've made some great progress on stripping out the interior. Got all the side airbags out now, all the seat belts are gone, all the stuff that's going to be needed for a road car that we're not going to be needing in the track car anymore. But Nick's going to be coming down today as he's had a few parts dropped off at home. He's had his new AP racing brakes. He's also got a set of alloy wheels going onto the car, and we're going to be having the Nitron coilovers delivered today. We've got a whole load more work to get done on the car, but what you'll notice already from what you've seen, we've weighed the doors, the original ones that came off the car, and there's going to be a big weight saving off of those. The front doors are weighing nearly 30 kilos each, the rear doors are 20 kilos each, and then comparing those to the doors that we're going to be fitting, there should be a big weight saving. We've got Perspex windows, the interiors of the doors have been cut out, so there's a lot of weight being removed. For anyone who's in the UK who wants to follow along on the season, we'd love to see you in the pits. But for now, Nick's on his way down and he's going to be collecting all the old interior, the seats, the doors, all the stuff that's going to be redundant on the car now. So let's get Nick in and meet the first of our drivers.
Hello everybody, my name's Nick, otherwise known as No Good Nick, and I'm going to be racing in this year's British Time Attack, sponsored and helped by the guys at Dream. So obviously we're here in the workshop. I've brought down a whole host of stuff which is going to help us finish the build off. I know Phil's already talked and brushed up on some of the things that we're doing. Just to take you through what we've actually added, as well as the engine, we really just need everything that's going to help us actually put the power down. So first things first, this year's Time Attack are using a control tyre which is an AO52, but as most of you probably who run like a track setup on an 18 will run the 265s, which I did all of last year, and they work tremendously. What these are is a 295 on an 11J. So we've got here from 2Forge a 10J, which will fit 265 to the back, and then an 11J, which is going to be for the front to help put down all of that power. We're hopefully going to see how those fit and see if we can snug those into an already tight gap. To go with those, obviously we're going to need to stop with all of that power. Brembo brakes that come on the car, awesome. I think everybody that runs the car will know the brakes are always a strong point on these, they're good. Improving on that, and trying to obviously add the stopping power that we need with the extra tyre on the floor. We've got AP Racing's sort of race kit. Look at the size of these guys. So these are basically the same spec as what goes onto a BTCC Spec FK8 Type R. As well as that, really nice calipers, and the weight difference in these is just for unsprung weight wise. These are going to be great for that. They're also going to be great for stopping power. These are a 6-pot, which the stock ones are a 4-pot. So just generally all in all, these are a way more capable caliper that are just going to help us really be able to use the maximum amount of grip for braking, well, minimise the braking time and hopefully get some more time off the laps. We're doing all of the bushes on the front subframe, trying to tighten everything up. One big thing that I know everybody's probably going to think about with this car is cooling. Anyone who knows me already or follows me knows that last year for me was all about making a reliable car that can go to the track as many times as you like and still go down to the shops and pick up your loaf of bread and your milk for your tea. So I still want to have that, and we're still going to build that. It's just about how we're going to then transfer that into the car as it has nothing in it and it becomes a bit of a monster. So one thing that I bought, which is this Goode crash bar. So that's going to help obviously maximise the airflow going through the front bumper, which is mainly the biggest problem, is getting air in and out of the engine bay. So with obviously extra power, extra heat, so we're going to do as much as we can to maximise the cooling efficiency of the engine. As well as that, we're stripping absolutely everything to the bare bones. There is going to be as much taken out of the weight of the car as possible. The difference with the doors is going to be huge. We've got gutted doors with Lexan windows, so as opposed to the OEM doors, which have got all of the crash protection and speakers and fancy things that make the car feel nice and refined inside. So for racing, we ain't going to need any of that. So we've took all of that out, and the difference in the doors is going to be huge. I mean, it is just from picking them up. The front doors stand at 30 kilograms and the rear doors stand at 20 kilograms. And the doors that we're putting on are probably less than half of that weight. So with the placement of where it is actually on the chassis and stuff is going to help us with, you know, changing direction of the car and obviously just reducing weight all over. We're going to do absolutely everything we can to maximise the possibility of us taking home some trophies, because at the end of the day, first time in Time Attack, but I'm not here to be a runner-up, I want to win. So we're going to do absolutely everything we can so that we're right up there with the competition. And obviously, the competition this year is going to be very, very difficult. 4 FK8s in there this year, so it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. Okay, so one really important thing about every race car is the cockpit and where the driver sits. Now, we're going to be having the same spec of seat in ours, or in mine, should I say. So it's really important to make sure that with the race suit on and all of the gear, that we're comfortable. So me, hoping that, yeah, I mean, if I want to breathe, this possibly isn't the one that I'll be using. So unfortunately, Phil and the guys, they are far more athletic in stature than me and slightly smaller. So I won't be able to pinch this seat. However, we will be using the same spec, just maybe in a slightly wider size for a larger stature of man, which I am athletic. But no, this one won't fit, definitely. And I may need help getting out of this now. This very special box has come in, and this box is going to be absolutely crucial into helping us dial in every aspect of the chassis alignment and suspension and so on. So I kind of gave the game away here. So let's unbox it and let's see what it is. Really going ahead from what I already have as a setup is to go to a full coilover. So these are Nitron R3s set up for racing. So there's the spring rates and so on are set up with track orientated stuff in mind. These particular ones are the 3-ways, obviously R3's 3-ways, so it means that we have 3-way damping adjustment. Once these are dialed in, these are going to give us a massive advantage over being able to control the car, not only in the mid corner, but in the low speed and high speed conditions, and we'll have equal amount of adjustability. Let's unbox it, let's see what it can do. First important piece, camber plates. So Nitron's ones obviously give you an amazing amount of adjustment. So you can adjust camber from the top. Really nicely built these are as well. Collar adjusters. So I presume that's for like height and spring load. So once they're all assembled. Again though, really nicely like machine parts like these. Just definitely taking them apart. As soon as you just feel them in your hands, they just feel like a really well-made piece. These are the dampers. Look at that. So these have got all the damping adjustment, external ballast, so and then obviously the thingy adjustment there. I'm gonna have to read the instructions on these because these look really technical. Hopefully we're gonna have some help from Nitron themselves when it comes to testing out the car and getting into the early stages. Because setting these up is gonna be absolutely crucial. With the 3-way damping, it'll mean that we can really start dialing in the car to the level that you would see anything like a BTCC car or a lot of the other cars that are on the grid, especially in time attack and pushing the limits that much, are going to be running something like a Nitron R3. So we're really, really fortunate and really lucky to be able to be running these on the car. And I genuinely think it's going to give us the edge that we need so we can be at least #1 all time. Really nicely done. Just really, really, like even the powder coat on there, just really well done. Okay, so this is the front suspension assembly. So, strut tower, in the car, underneath, front wheels, 560 brake horsepower, fingers crossed. And this will go up into the engine bay, be mounted to probably somewhere on the bulkhead. And then that will then give us all of the faster abilities. Yeah, that's it. And then that's real. I mean, if you look at that, like as a piece, it's just so well finished. Like just looking at it, it just looks just really, really well manufactured. You've got all of your stuff, your springs, your adjusters, camber plates, and obviously all of that together is going to help us dial in the car and hopefully put us into contention for some championship trophies. That's the Nitrons unboxed. It's going to be such a huge change going from the car that it was to the car that it is going to be. Mainly because like the whole of last year I got the opportunity to learn how the car turned and how it did everything, and obviously you kind of create your own understanding of what the traits are and the characteristics of your car. So all last year I was learning, and yeah, on one side you can say it's going to be a huge difference between what we're building and what it was. But mainly it's really just all of the things that I could have changed about the car from last year's car to what this year's car will be is basically what all of the things we're doing. It's being able to understand what was kind of not so much wrong with it, but where improvements can be made. And then everything that we've got here is basically just, you know, capitalising on those improvements. And as opposed to doing it over a short period of time, I'm just kind of doing it all at once, which is, if anybody who knows me knows that's pretty much how I do it. So it will give us a really good base car to then go into TA and just, you know, even just normal track days and kind of learn how the car works now. We'll just be able to push the boundary so much further than what we did last year, just on the premise that all of the things are now put right that were wrong with it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a difficult thing to learn, but you know, the capabilities of the car are now so much further that I've now got to push my own capabilities, but that's really where time in the car is going to be really important. But fingers crossed, we're getting the car as soon as possible, and then some of that footage will be going up as well. But until then, it's unfortunately going to stay like this until we've got it all in there.
Whilst Nick is working away on the camber arms at the moment, it's a really horrible job, so I've left him to do that. I'm getting started on the gearbox. So we've already stripped down the gearbox and we've cleaned up all the internals, made sure it's ready to start on the assembly. So on this one in particular, we're going to be fitting a Quafe ATB. This one's already been used, but it's still in good order, so we're going to use that. The gearbox is going to have a refresh in the way of new bearings, so we have new bearings on the diff and on both shafts of the gearbox, as well as a refresh on all the synchros. There's a slight burring on the edge of the synchros, and you should have seen the amount of swarf that came out once we actually removed the filter on the gearbox. If you're ever doing a gearbox oil change yourselves, we'd highly recommend whipping out the filter and just checking for any little bits of swarf in there. It's usually a good telltale sign that the synchros are starting to fail. But once we've got all that done, that brings us back to a pretty good spec, and it should be as functioning like OEM again, although we're going for a little upgrade on this one as well. So we're going to be using a set of the RV6 fourth gears. It's a nice sort of semi-straight cut gear. These sound really cool when in the car, but obviously it's offering a lot more strength as opposed to the fourth gear that we would usually use. Ourselves, we've previously had a failure of fourth gear. When we were in time attack, it tore off a couple of teeth on the fourth gear itself. So we're trying to prevent those failures from happening in the future. We're actually going to be building up a second gearbox as a spare as well, which is really, really cool to have those spares on hand should we have any issues in the future. So with the shafts now back in place, I'm going to be able to measure them up now for the end plate float. I've dropped the casing on, take a couple of measurements and adjust the shims if needed. But we're on the home straight, just basically now need to drop the forks back into place, put the reverse gear back in around here, and we're ready to seal this one up. So with the gearbox lid back on for the final time now, I can get the rest of the sensors in place, the detent springs there, and it mated back to the engine. Once we've got the two of those together, we can then get it fitted up into the chassis of the car. So I've got the engine and gearbox mated together now, and we're nearly there, ready to get it back into the car, but I've got a few more bits to get fitted. We've got the half shaft to get onto the side, onto the back of the block there, and also the engine wiring loop, which I'd like to get fitted, as it's pretty tricky trying to do that once the engine's back in the car. So we'll get that all ready to be loaded back up into the frame. But now it's probably a very good point to remind you, let's go hit the subscribe button. Not only are we working on Nick's car ready for time attack, but we've also got David's car back in with us for a few upgrades on that one. And that'll be another video coming out in a couple of weeks' time. Let's go hit the subscribe button.
So we're back at Dream. A lot of progress has been made on the car since the last time we videoed. Obviously I was down last week just to button up a couple of things, put the rear camber arms in. And obviously since then, the guys have done a hell of a lot more. So we now have engine and gearbox back in the car. So now we can start looking at where everything needs to go in the engine bay, start measuring things up for where all of the cooling mods are going to be going. Obviously, we've got a bit of space to make ACs come out of this now, so we can take the fan out, get a bit more space behind, just because obviously big turbo going to be making a lot of heat. So as well as that, all the other bits and pieces that we've got to fit, ballast for the suspension, and then various other bits and pieces in the engine bay. Now it's up to me to go and take the tyres that I've just put in the car over to get their stamp certified so we can use them on track. So fingers crossed the next time that you see this engine, it'll be running. So I'm super excited about this because this is going to sound awesome.
Perfect.
I've had a good few straight days on the car now and managed to test fit quite a few parts. So you might have seen that I've tilted the radiator forward. We're using the Acuity reverse flow hoses, and I've added about 100mm section in here just to help tilt the radiator forward and help try and extract some of the air through the radiator and out of the hood. We just need to make some new brackets now just to hold the radiator in place. A couple of parts I'm still waiting to come into stock. We're going to change the street MAF of the PRL airbox over to one of the race MAF housings, and that'll obviously include the silicone hose we're able to join back up to the intake pipe, but obviously replace the filter at the same time as doing all that as well. A lot of what I've been doing this week is test fitting parts, making sure that I can get the reservoirs mounted up on the bulkhead, and remember I'm going to be putting certain parts in with others as well. So we've got the radium dual catch cans, and one of those catch cans needs to mount exactly where this Nitron reservoir is at the moment. So there's a couple of little tricky things to work around. But like I said, I've been test fitting a lot of the parts this week. So we've got the Nitron coilovers in, they're nice and loose, ready to be adjusted. And we've also got the AP racing brakes now fitted up. So there's a little bit of trimming that needs to be made on the back of the heat shield there, just to allow clearance for the bracket. but they fitted up really nicely as we'd expect, so they're ready to be bled next. So the theme of this week really has been test fitting a lot of the parts, one of which was the new ECU. We haven't touched on engine management just yet, but what I did initially was unpair the Honda Flash Pro from the car, which we're no longer going to be using, and we're converting the car over to run on the CIVIC S7 ECU. So the ECU came from an FK8. I've currently got the ECU up on my desk at the moment, and we're opening that to then be able to update the firmware of the ECU to know that it's going to be working on an FK8. There's a couple of differences with the FK2 as opposed to the FK8 in clutch pedal position switches, which is going to help with things like auto rev matching and flat foot shifting. So all of these functions are going to be available to Nick once the car's up and running. As I mentioned, we're on a CIVIC ECU along with a built engine, so we're going to be able to use flat shift, we're going to be able to use anti-lag and all those cool features that CIVIC brings to the table. So one of the other areas where I wanted to look at this week was the doors. I was really intrigued to see how they were going to look on the car, and there is one little sticking point on these. These particular doors have had the big crash bar on the inside cut out of them, which means they're not going to meet the regs that we're going to need for this season. If we were going for doors like this, we would have had to run a full roll cage with double door bars, and that's not what we're going for with Nick's car. Nick's going for a half cage, which we're waiting still to turn it up. But it does mean that we're going to have to switch these doors out for another set that we've got with the door bars still in place. As you would have seen from a few of the videos in the past, we've got plenty of doors up on the side, so we'll get a couple of those down and get the correct doors fitted up to the car. But moving on to the interior, we've had a couple of upgrades going into the car. So we've got one of the rear chassis braces in place, and we've also been fitting up on the new Zestec steering wheel. Now these are a really lovely bit of kit, and we can designate all these buttons around here. We can have light different colours and become all the functions that Nick's going to want to use, making the most of the CIVIC ECU. We've also got a little surprise in store for Nick on the rear end of the car, so if you've got any guesses what that might be, leave us something in the comments below. But as for today's video, we're not going to quite get the car finished and started just yet, so unfortunately we're going to have to leave you on a cliffhanger. Join us for part 2 of the video where we'll have the car fired up and we'll be going away for some fabrication work. If you've enjoyed today's video, hit the like, share and subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. If you want to stay up to speed with Nick's build and the action on track, go give Nick a follow on Instagram, username NoGoodNick, and then the UK Time Attack page, which is timeattack_UK.